It was a typical Monday morning in the Dallas neighborhood of Oak Cliff. October the 9th, 2020 was a sunny, calm morning in the midst of the pandemic when people all over the world were staying home and working if they could. Like many people in the U.S., Jamie and Jennifer Faith looked forward to their morning walk with their Bernese Mountain Dog Maggie. They did this every morning like clockwork, and at 7:33 a.m. that day, Jennifer went out the door first with the dog on the leash, Jamie following quickly behind. What happened next would leave a community in shock. Before we begin, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies to the family and loved ones of Jamie Faith, a man whose life was taken during this horrible crime. Out of nowhere, a man has run up from behind the couple and fired 7 or 8 shots, striking Jamie 7 times. 3 bullets would strike Jamie in the head, 3 in the torso, and 1 in the groin. Jamie falls to the ground dead or dying. The family dog bolts away from the scene. The assailant then attempts to grab Jennifer, slapping a strip of duct tape around one of her wrists and then paws at her wedding ring in an attempt to steal it. Unsuccessful, the man, wearing a dark blue hoodie and a blue surgical mask, common during the pandemic, turns to flee the area. A neighbor, Emery Wilson, who lives 5 doors down from the Faith family, hears the shots and immediately runs out to help.
Ready to get. Call the police.
He runs down the sidewalk and stops when he sees the shooter standing before him, the gun in his right hand. The Faiths are on the ground behind the man. Wilson then turns and runs back inside his own home, grabs his own pistol, loads it, and runs back out to help. By the time Wilson returns to the scene, the assailant has gotten into an older black Nissan Titan and fled the scene. Wilson runs to the Faiths and tries to calm down the hysterical Jennifer. Jamie lays on the concrete sidewalk, facing away from Wilson, but obviously dead. No one was able to catch the license plate information from the truck, but witnesses did say that it had a large white letter T on the lower left of the truck's rear window. The T is the symbol of the Texas Rangers baseball team. A neighbor across the street, as well as countless others from surrounding homes, were calling 911 and begging for officers and ambulances to be sent to the scene. Just minutes pass before the first officers arrive. Unfortunately, the murderer had gotten away scot-free. This wasn't the type of thing that happened in this neighborhood. One of the oldest communities in the Dallas metro area, Oak Cliff was a solid middle-class neighborhood going through gentrification. It was a nice, older neighborhood filled with nice people. It wasn't the kind of place where people were gunned down in the street for their jewelry, at least not until that morning. Or was it? Sometimes quiet places hide quiet secrets. And there was definitely a secret going on, and it was tied to the murder of Jamie Faith. And it was a secret with roots going back 3 decades that had just reemerged quietly behind the scenes, and it played out as an unsuspecting husband's lifeblood poured out on the sidewalk. So just what did happen and why? Let's start looking at the Faith family. The couple, along with their daughter and dog, had moved to their home on Waverly Street in the Oak Cliff neighborhood 3 years prior. The two had been married for 15 years, almost to the day, and had celebrated their anniversary just the night before the shooting. Jamie was a successful IT director with American Airlines and had moved his family to the area after American Airlines merged with U.S. Air just 3 years earlier. Community members and friends would tell investigators that the couple had a good, solid relationship. There didn't seem to be any outward stressors on that relationship. They were comfortable together and comfortable financially. They had many shared interests and apparently were adjusting well to the changes to society caused by the pandemic. Jennifer was devastated by the killing of Jamie. As she sat on the grass nearby her husband's body, she asked again and again why no one came to help, that according to witnesses at the scene. Police would later take her down to the police station to get her statements about the incident.
I turned around and I just saw this person shoot and shoot. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know. Why? His body was lying like this on the street, and then
So was your husband like this? Did your husband say anything to her?
No, I don't know. I think I was yelling no. I think he did the same thing. It just seemed quiet. That's all I remember are the shots.
And several shots?
Well, a lot of shots. 5, 6 maybe, I feel like. And he just kept going, and I couldn't stop it. The shot and my husband's expression.
Is it your husband's facial expression?
Just like, oh my gosh. And he just crap. And then I was like, the shot, and then I saw the person turn and like just dark eyes and coming toward me, and so I yelled no, and I had the dog, and I started to run, and he tackled me to the ground, and then stopped, ran, and he was getting my face.
As part of the interview process, police would also ask for her permission to access her cell phone and examine her communications in an attempt to see if there were any pieces of information which could assist them. Jennifer readily agreed and gave the officers full access to it. In the coming days, she would give interviews to at least 2 different TV stations, pleading with the public to call the police with tips or information they may have that would help in discovering the murderer of Jamie Faith.
It's been horrible. Devastating. I teeter between completely heartbroken and completely devastated every day. I need that for closure. I need to make some sense out of this. I just hope that at some point, maybe this person can recognize the gravity of what they've done. He would give you the shirt off his back. I'm not supposed to be widowed at 48.
Jamie was buried and his parents somberly paid for the funeral expenses, and donations flowed in through a GoFundMe page set up by Jennifer to cover the family's expenses and long-term needs. Things began to quiet down in the community after the killing, but quietly, behind closed doors, the investigation had caught a break. And behind another unseen door, the perpetrators were beginning to make plans for the future. There was almost nothing of a suspicious nature found on Jennifer's phone. There were a couple of messages back and forth between Jamie and Jennifer as they talked about relationship troubles they were having, but nothing unusual that many other people aren't also experiencing, especially during the pandemic when everyone was in close quarters. There was one text message that Jennifer had sent that eventually came to light. It was to an old friend that lived states away from Jennifer. And in the text, Jennifer confided in her that she had reunited with an old high school flame named Darren online. She went on to tell her that the two were having a full-blown emotional, if not yet physical, affair. Investigators could tell from the message that the affair had started about 7 months prior to the killing. And yet, there was not a single text, voicemail, or email between the two on the phone, at least outwardly. There was, however, the name, address, and phone number for Darren Ruben Lopez, the old boyfriend. It wasn't much, but it was a lead that investigators had to follow up on. Darren, they found out, had a career in the United States Army, a Green Beret with the U.S. Special Forces, and had spent several tours in Iraq. During his time there, he had suffered multiple injuries, including trauma to his head in a roadside IED attack that killed 19 of his fellow soldiers. He would receive the Purple Heart for his wounds, but would later have to retire from the military due to disabilities from his wounds and the post-traumatic stress disorder that the event left him with. Lopez owned a 20-acre tract of land and a home in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, and was the father of 2 daughters and had recently gone through a divorce. Working with authorities in Tennessee, investigators engaged the ATF, the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, to utilize their resources to do a quick surveillance of the property to see what they could turn up. What they found would bring the case of who killed Jamie Faith to a head. In an aerial flyover photo of the Lopez property on November the 20th, there was a black Nissan Titan pickup parked outside of a barn. And in the lower left rear window on the back of the truck was a distinctive white T decal. It was a match to both eyewitness descriptions and the photo of the getaway vehicle. What kind of coincidence would it take for a vehicle exactly matching the one at the scene of a crime to be found on a rural farm 650 miles away, and for that vehicle to be owned by Jennifer Faith's high school boyfriend? It was enough evidence to begin actively investigating Darren Lopez's involvement in the case of Jamie Faith. Subpoenas were obtained to access Lopez's phone and banking records, and the story those told left no doubt. Records showed that on the day before the killing, Lopez had taken his truck in for a quick checkup and servicing. Immediately after that, he had headed down the road to Huck's gas station, filling up the tank, and he had gotten cash from an ATM there. Security cameras at the establishment would take a picture of him in the store wearing a blue surgical mask, just like the one the perpetrator had been seen wearing. Along the route from Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee to Dallas, Texas, Lopez's phone would leave a trail of cell tower pings like a long telltale trail of breadcrumbs. Investigators would spend hours looking through security camera footage from locations along the way. Dallas detective Eric Barnes would later speak with ABC News about the work that went into the tracking effort.
So we were able to get cell tower location information all the way from Tennessee until he arrived in Dallas. He stopped at the gas station to get all the necessary supplies. He bought a Red Bull, 2 DVDs, took out $100 in cash, so he had enough gas money to get back.
Records from Lopez's phone would show that he arrived in the Oak Cliff neighborhood, pulled his truck into the backyard of a vacant house next door to the Faith home around 2:19 a.m. on the morning of October the 9th. Somehow, he managed to get onto the property in the middle of the night without setting off any alarms or alerting any of the neighbors, and he waited patiently for the Faiths to emerge from their home at 7:30 a.m., followed them out, and committed the murder. Moments later, he was back in his truck and making his getaway. Somehow, he was able to make it out of town during what was the morning rush hour, of course being much lighter because of the pandemic. Records show that he drove straight back with few stops along the way, all 650 miles. Investigators would later find out that before leaving, he had told his daughters that he would be gone for a couple of days on a hunting trip. A hunting trip, indeed. A second check at the Lopez property days after the first flyover showed the Nissan truck was still there, but the white T decal had been removed. Had Lopez somehow been alerted to the fact that the decal was a distinctive feature that the police were on the lookout for? Once again, it would have been too big of a coincidence to consider that he just decided to remove it right after the incident. And police had a very good idea not just why he had removed it, but also who had suggested it. It would be on January the 11th, 2021, a month and a half later, that law enforcement and federal agents would pull Darren Lopez over in a traffic stop and arrest him away from his home. He would be brought in on federal firearms charges and for a murder charge originating from the state of Texas for the slaying of Jamie Faith. While Dallas officers were coordinating their long-distance efforts with those in Tennessee, there was another coordinated effort going on in their own city as part of this case. In an effort to cut off any chances of Lopez getting out a warning call or text, police brought in Jennifer Faith for further questioning. Had Lopez acted alone and had murderously stalked Jamie in an attempt to get back with Jennifer? Had he been clearing away a rival for her affections? Police needed to know not just his level of involvement, but also Jennifer's. What they found would surprise them as to the breadth and depth of the affair the two suspects had built in just a few short months over a great distance, never having come into physical contact. They once again requested to look at the phone and its contents. She agreed, and this time they had been able to get Lopez's permission to search his phone as well. What they found between the two of them didn't match up. Jennifer's was nearly blank when it came to communications with Darren. Darren's phone would tell a completely different story. While police knew they had their gunman, they had to see what input Jennifer had in the situation. She wasn't talking, and they gave her very little information, if any, about the arrest of Darren. Darren, in turn, refused to turn on Jennifer and implicate her in the crime. He would later be accused of seeing himself as a white knight, loyal and faithful to the woman he loved, even looking down the barrel of a Texas murder trial death sentence. He was held on charges stemming from the interstate effort to commit murder and the murder charge itself in Texas. He was held on a $1 million bond. Darren did not give her up, even under the weight of those charges. His own texts and communications, however, did. In Darren's phone was a text Jennifer had sent him on December the 3rd. It read, "So I woke up in a little bit of a panic. Something is eating away at me, telling me you need to take the sticker out of the back window of your truck." 30 minutes later, Darren texted back, "I don't want to take it off all at once. The girls would notice that, but I have been working on it." The next day, she texted him saying, "I have a bad feeling, and I think you really need to get that sticker off ASAP, like today." He shot back a quick text later, "Sticker done." Her reply followed with, "Yay, thank you, I feel so much better." It may not have been the actual smoking gun they were looking for, but it showed that there could be no question anymore. Darren Lopez had not acted purely on his own. A search of Darren's home done under a search warrant did, however, turn up a .45 caliber Sig Sauer handgun that the crime lab was able to match to the shell casings found at the scene of the murder. Tiny traces of Jamie's blood were also found on the gun itself. There could be little doubt that this was the murder weapon. Ownership of the handgun was also not in question. It had been found in a softcover case, obviously marked as owned by Darren. Digging further back into Darren's phone records, they came across another text from Jennifer. This one dated just 2 days before the killing. "Don't text me Monday. I'm going to factory reset my phone on Sunday night after deleting texts." Jennifer Faith was brought back in on February the 24th and placed under arrest. She would be charged at first with obstruction, but what authorities would find in the coming days would lead her to the capital crime of use of interstate commerce in the commission of murder for hire. In the intervening month, investigators had been able to recover all of the text that she and Darren had exchanged over the prior months. Within was not just the story of a rekindled love affair, but one of manipulation, financial compensation, and outright encouragement to commit murder. Jennifer's computer and other electronic devices were also seized from the home, offering up a trove of revealing emails, some that would lead to extremely disturbing revelations. The online romance between the two started after Darren reached out to Jennifer through her LinkedIn account. He had apparently been searching for her for some time. Reeling from his own divorce, he expressed some vulnerability, and Jennifer, feeling some inadequacies in her own marriage, responded. The two fell into something hot and heavy very quickly. Over the coming months prior to the murder, they would have some 14,363 contacts between the two, whether it be emails, texts, or phone calls. After the murder, contacts would cease for some time before they began communicating again. Now, with her giving updates on the status of her claim against Jamie's $360,000 life insurance policy, and to let Darren know that she had paid off 2 credit cards that she had given Darren to use, a payoff that was just over $50,000. Along the way, Jennifer began intimating that not only was she unhappy in the marriage, but Jamie was also becoming abusive. At first, she told Darren there had been emotional abuse, then physical abuse, and eventually sexual abuse. As Darren's concern grew, Jennifer would send him pictures of the injuries she had reportedly received from Jamie. She would tell Darren that she only confided in one other person about the abuse, a coworker named Rob. She would provide contact information to Darren for him to check with Rob to corroborate the story. Rob, through direct emails and chats with Darren, would tell him that he had seen the evidence and had told her she needed to leave, only to hear that she wouldn't because of her family. And then Darren began receiving emails from Jamie. The emails told him that he knew about the affair and that if Darren didn't get out of the picture, the abuse would not just continue, but it would get worse. Darren would move away after these, but Jennifer would contact him again and the two would rekindle it, now with more of a conspiratorial feel to the affair. Investigators then stumbled across something that changed how they looked at the entire situation. Rob did not exist outside of that relationship, and the emails from Jamie didn't come from Jamie. Both had come from dummy accounts set up by Jennifer Faith on her own computer. She was playing all 3 roles in the drama that Darren was involved in. And Darren had no idea when the investigators informed him of it. He denied that it could have happened that way. He knew she was his true love. They showed him the evidence. And then they showed him that not only had she faked the accounts of the 2 men, but she had also faked the signs of abuse as well. Darren was confounded by the information. Had he been duped the entire time? Had he been a pawn in some scheme? He was left to wonder, and his attorneys would latch onto that possibility as they prepared his defense in the coming court case. Jennifer's attorney spoke with the local news media after her arrest.
Well, obviously, there's a whole lot of text messages. There's thousands of them, so we need to get a complete picture. Obviously, we believe we have a defense. I'm sure there's some deletions. A lot of people delete text messages, and I know there's a lot, as I mentioned earlier, of not deleted, where she admits talking to her husband about her feelings, about her actions are not consistent with someone planning the murder. DPD has not arrested her, so I think that's pretty telling that they're lacking evidence of that.
As confident as he was about providing a defense for her, Jennifer changed her mind and quickly caved in. Attorneys from the Department of Justice had laid out their case and let her know that because she had masterminded Darren's murder of Jamie Faith, she too was looking at the death penalty, and they had no compunctions pushing for it. Her paying off of the credit cards that she had provided him was evidence enough for a murder-for-hire scheme alone. She quickly cut a deal to plead guilty in exchange for life in prison. The Justice Department would also waive their obstruction of justice charge that she faced, but she would be required to pay $6,500 in restitution to Jamie's family for the cost of his funeral services and a $250,000 fine. As Jennifer headed to prison, Darren's attorneys worked to provide him with a defense. Not that he didn't kill the man, but that he had been deluded by Jennifer's attempts and had, in some way, nobly been trying to defend the woman he loved.
At the time, I was thinking I was the noble soldier that did my job. I did what I was trained to do. I protected people. I kept them from a monster.
He told the court that he believed Jennifer throughout, and even when first presented with the evidence of what she had been doing, he could not reconcile his feelings with what they were showing him.
I was devastated. I took an innocent life. I took Amber's dad from her. A man who was like me.
Prosecutor Brandy Mitchell put forth an argument that the love affair, even more than the manipulations, was really behind the killing. Numerous messages between the two would be read out in court.
Hello, Jen. Well, I'm so happy that I finally tracked down your email and got a chance to say hi. I'm not big on social media, so I do not have Facebook or such. I have been tracking you down slowly since January. Today, I was excited to find your LinkedIn and Twitter and joined LinkedIn today just to say hi. And he goes on to talk about Twitter and his children. And then he says, I have been working on a letter for you for some time now because you have no idea how much I've thought of you over the years and wanted to share that with you. As you may have guessed, my life took me into the Army, where I served 20 years on active duty. While there, I followed my dream and joined Special Forces, so I've been on the front lines since 9/11. He goes on to say, if you get a chance, look up the country western song by Little Texas, What Might Have Been. I've thought of you every time I heard of that song way back in '96 when I got back from South Korea. He looks forward to hearing from her, and he signs it off, as you wish, Darren. Hello, Angel. If he drives you away, I so want you with me. If he drives you away, I need you in my life. I just want to hold you tight. Your head on my chest, just us together, letting me take care of you in all ways. That is all I want. Everything else can come much later. Let us just be like we were on the bus through Europe. I loved those rides with you. Just want you close and safe in my arms. That's what I really want from you now. Always with you, your soulmate, as you wish, D. You are sitting there thinking, I can do nothing to stop you from abusing Jen, and I'm going to show you that I have plenty to ruin and destroy your life. What you don't know, and I'm not sure if Jen even recalls this, but you had her so up after you started abusing her and having her. It was easy for me to convince her to take pictures of her injury and send them to me. So I have graphic photographic evidence of all the abuse that she has sustained from you. I have enclosed one pic to prove to you that I have them, and I have many more to send along to the authorities. Putting these pics alongside the very graphic texts and emails you sent shows a very clear picture of domestic abuse she has sustained.
The question would then be put to Darren as to whether he ever thought to question what she had told him.
This whole time you are talking to Rob or you're talking to Jennifer, but never are the three of you talking together.
Not on the same chat, no.
Never. That didn't seem strange to you? Hey, Rob, you know what? We better get on this phone with Jen right now. Maybe you and I could convince her together. Nope, never did that?
Darren's defense attorney, Juan Sanchez, would try to imply that the stressors Jennifer had put on the man had triggered his PTSD and preyed on his need to protect those he loved. A specialist in such matters would be brought into the court to testify.
This became the center of his being, and it was, as he had said, is a mission, survival mission, eliminate the threat. And that perception of threat is impaired in this case.
In the end, Darren Lopez was found guilty of the murder of Jamie Faith. It was obvious that in a fit of passion long stoked and built by Jennifer Faith, Darren had chosen to make the long drive to Dallas and kill an innocent and unsuspecting man. He would be sentenced to serve 62 years for the crime. He and the woman he loved would be headed for the same fate, but in the end would never, ever be together. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and please subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.